November 2018 is probably going to go down as one of the craziest in gaming history. At the beginning of the month, Activision Blizzard came out on stage at BlizzCon, their showcase of the year, and addressed their hardcore PC audience by saying, "Hey everybody, we're shifting our focus from PC to mobile, we're turning our attention to China to sell it to, and just for good measure, we're going to try and sell a bunch of microtransactions to kiddies as well." What a bunch of heroes. And then EA, who earlier in the year had decided to poke the bear and said, "Hey, if you don't want whammons in your Battlefield 5 game, then don't buy it." Well, guess what? When it came out, they decided to take your advice, and sales for Battlefield 5 absolutely plummeted. And then Bethesda. Beloved company Bethesda. I mean, Activision and EA, they've got a track record of being a bunch of dicks. But Bethesda, what did they do? They complete and utterly imploded with Fallout 76, a game which at best can be described as early access, and at worst, a very, very cynical cash grab in an effort to get into the live services business. But it just went from bad to worse as more things came out. Collector's editions with unpromised items inside of them, with no message from them. As I said, they imploded. So the question you have to ask is, what has happened to the gaming industry? Well, in AZChats 85, I'm going to try and give you my subjective opinion as to what I think and try and condense it down into a reasonable time, but we got a lot to unpack here, people. Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface with AZChats number 85. AZChats videos, the more podcasty type of video as opposed to a visual video. There's something for you to listen to, not necessarily watch unless you really enjoy this beautiful image here. And this one here. But this is the perfect time to crank me up in the background and get on with something around the house. Now, you've seen the title for today's video, and before I go into it, I want to ask you all a question. And my question is, why do you play video games? Now, feel free to pause this video right now and have a think about it. Why do you play video games? So I'm going to offer up, for the people that have unpaused or immediately know the answer, I'm going to offer up some suggestions, and you see which ones of these suggestions I offer marry up with your idea of why you play video games. Do you play video games because you love gambling and you love to gamble your money? Do you play video games because you like to pay extortionate amounts of money for a video game that you don't necessarily think deserves it? Do you play video games for fun and excitement? Do you play video games for escapism, to take you away from everything that's going on in your lives and take you to other lands and fantasy realms? Gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna reckon that you probably, most people agreed with the latter two of the suggestions I gave, and maybe a minuscule proportion of people agreed with the first two. I love getting ripped off from video games, mate. Tick. So in that degree, why are we in the state that we're in right now with the video game industry? Why can we look back at November 2018 as one of the most bizarre, crazy, self-destructive months in the gaming world? Is what happened just a serendipitous bunch of events that happened to just be coincidentally in a very specific time frame? I don't believe so, personally. I think what we saw in November with EA, with Activision Blizzard, and Bethesda were these companies' hens coming home to roost. But before we go forward, we just have to go back a wee bit. You see, in 1983, the gaming industry itself nearly fell apart. It absolutely crashed. But fortunately, throughout the course of the 80s, two major powers started to emerge in gaming: Nintendo and Sega. They produced their own hardware, and they also produced their own software, as well as third parties producing for them. They became rivals, and you had Nintendo fans and you had Sega fans. But the premise of purchase was very simple indeed. Once you had the console, all you need do was buy the game. You plug the game in, play away. And into the 90s, as the 8-bit gave way to the 16-bit, suddenly we had another contender come into the fray, and that was Sony with the PlayStation. The revolutionary PlayStation. Because after the 16 bits had become 64 bits, the PlayStation was offering 128 bits. Oh my goodness me, such power. And then due to the latter end of the 1990s, we also saw the personal computer, the PC, becoming a lot more popular at homes as well. And people using the PC not just for business, but for a lot more pleasure activities with video games. And then, when the noughties came about, we saw Sega bow out of the hardware war, with the Dreamcast being their last offering, but staying in the software marketplace and being replaced by Microsoft, bringing their powerhouse of the Xbox 2. Not the Xbox 2, the Xbox TOO. But it's the noughties that changed everything. And in 2005, the simple premise of purchase your console or your PC and then just buy the game was to change forever. And Microsoft in 2005 brought in the Microsoft Points. Now, the Microsoft Points was a system that was, in hindsight, particularly missold to the audience. Microsoft said, hey, this is a great way of you, instead of being tied into buying a lump sum of something that would cost £20, you can use your Microsoft Points and just pick the pieces of content that you want for much less, for $1, up to $5. And for a gamer, this sounded rather attractive. Oh, right, okay, why have all the faff that I don't want when I can just cherry pick what I do want? And they tried a few things. They tried some cosmetics which didn't really work, and they tried some maps with, I think it was Project Gotham Racing. Didn't quite work, didn't really take off. They were there and some people took advantage of, but there was no biggie. But there was one company in 2006 that really put microtransactions on the map. Enter Bethesda, and enter horse armor, which was sold for 200 Microsoft points, $2.50. Now, at the time, there was a massive hoo-ha about this, because the way that Microsoft had sold the Microsoft point system to gamers, people are expecting to pay 200 Microsoft points for lots of new content, for a new area, for new dungeons, for new quests, for new... They weren't expecting to pay 200 Microsoft points, $2.50, for a couple of pieces of horse armor. They're expecting to spend pennies for that sort of thing. So I've got to interject myself into the story here. Was I one of these savvy people? Was I one of these people who just like, hey, Bethesda, we like your games, but this is nonsense when it comes to pricing? No, I was an idiot. I was one of the fools. And I was one of these people who was still idyllic about the gaming industry. I was still idyllic about companies who were making wonderful games for us. And to me, Bethesda were doing that. I had played Morrowind a few years earlier, one of the greatest gaming experiences of my life, revolutionized RPGs for me, showed me how freedom and choice, instead of linear progression, could be just as stimulating and interesting and wonderful. In actual fact, a little bit more creative. And also, I was playing Oblivion at the time, the follow-up to Morrowind, which again, I was just thoroughly enjoying, absolutely falling in love with, especially considering they got Sean Bean and Patrick Stewart to do the voices. So I knew the cost. I knew that this was ridiculously high, but I was prepared to pay it. And I was prepared to pay it because I wanted to support Bethesda. Not necessarily because I thought that it was value for money, but I thought to myself, my internalized logic was, if I buy this horse armor, if I give Bethesda some extra money, then they will continue to produce amazing titles like Morrowind, like Oblivion, and what I was unaware of in the future, of course, just 2 years later, Fallout 3 would come out, and decisions like this would be even more vindicated. Because I believe that the gaming industry, that companies like Bethesda, were making these decisions because they did need that extra bucks. They did need that extra cash flow so they could go on to create revolutionary games. So was that naive of me? Well, yes, it was. However, in my eyes, I felt as if Bethesda were looking after me. We're going above and beyond with 2 stellar titles, with Morrowind and now Oblivion. And feeling that way, feeling that I was being looked after, I thought it my responsibility, my obligation almost, to look after Bethesda. And so I reciprocated when they said, hey, we've got this on sale, by purchasing it in an effort to help. This is the goodwill that gets built up when you get a game and you feel that game is value for money. You feel as if that company has produced something so special that they do deserve a wee bit more. So Microsoft, with the Microsoft points and their early microtransactions, and then Bethesda with the horse's armor, essentially showed companies exactly what they could get away with. But more particularly, Microsoft themselves showed the gaming industry how to harness nuclear power. And instead of the gaming industry building power stations and fueling the demographics that they had for years upon years to come, they all decided to build nuclear bloody bombs and detonate them everywhere. Microtransactions had now become something which could alleviate a big problem that the gaming industry had, and that was with the secondary marketplace. You see, when you buy a brand new product, the company gets their cut, but when you purchase a pre-owned copy of a game, they don't. There's no kickback for the secondary marketplace for them. And they saw that as an opportunity missed. They saw that as money been taken away from their company. Maybe not quite appreciating that one of the major reasons why people purchase a pre-owned game is they simply weren't prepared to pay the price that the new version of that game was being offered up at. They had a cheaper alternative. And so microtransactions could come into play here. They could offer content which the secondary market couldn't offer them. But, as ever, it just spiraled out of control. And so the gaming industry started to throw everything that it could at the wall to see what would stick. What would people accept? What would people reject? What could we get away with? And so we started to get all manner of things getting thrown at us within a very short period of a few years. We got pre-order bonuses. We got pre-order DLC. We then got different levels of the same game which came with different contents. We had on the disc DLC, we had season passes, we had loot boxes come in, we had just cosmetic and pay to win microtransactions depending on the game, additional character slots, additional emote, everything that you could think of just got thrown and thrown and thrown. And the things that people got upset with, they would ditch and they would try another method or double down on a new method. But all the while, there were still ethical companies producing good games. And even in this dark time, some of the companies which were doing these horrible microtransaction-y, DLC, loot boxy, season passy crap were still producing some pretty decent games. The soul hadn't completely gone out of the gaming industry just yet, even if greed was becoming an all-consuming aspect of it. That's not to say, however, that certain portions of the gaming industry did fall hook, line and dark side to greed, as they did. The fledgling mobile marketplace, which initially showed some really cool concept and really cool innovation about how gaming could be brought to mobile devices, just devolved into a pit of microtransactions and monetization. Here, speed up your time to do this. Here, get extra buttons, get extra crystals, get extra boxes. Open these up. What's inside? Money, 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 money. It was just egregiously disgusting. And then in the more mainstream gaming environment, we had wonderful IPs sacrificed by publishers because they couldn't adapt to the monetizations which they tried to place upon them. The Dead Space franchise, and EA being one of the biggest. And then recent times, we've seen the devolution of the Metal Gear franchise as Konami pushed out the ridiculously poor Metal Gear Survive, which was literally there just to throw monetization schemes at people, branding it with a name that people would hopefully love and respect, and therefore gravitate towards. It was their lowest selling game by a considerable margin. So we have a well-established greed within the gaming industry. We have some companies abusing it to its fullest, other companies seeing what they can get away with without fully committing to the dark side, and other companies showing how it really could be done, and could be done very well indeed, like CD Projekt Red. Were there microtransactions in their games? No. In actual fact, they gave away free content when The Witcher 3 came out. Every week or few days or so, you got something new, just because you'd actually purchased the game. And the game itself, you could play for in excess of 200 plus hours. There was so much to it, if you really wanted to explore what was out there. But when it came to monetization of The Witcher 3, they just produced 2 DLC packs. And this wasn't cash grab DLC. These were well crafted, well constructed, well made value adds to the game. Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. 2 additions, 2 DLCs which offered 30, 40, 50 plus hours on top each to the experience that you already had, and were sold at ridiculously low prices. I think in the UK it was about £12.99 per DLC. So value for money came into effect. It was almost as if CD Projekt Red were going back to the year 2005 and actually heeding what Microsoft did with the point system, but offering a utopic version of that, how it should have been done. Additional revenue for the product, but value add. The customer didn't feel ripped off. The customer felt as if they got value for every single solitary penny of that. And God bless you, CD Projekt Red. Now, don't get me wrong, gamers were being very vocally opposed to all that was going on here. Lots of people were asking, why were we suddenly seeing monetization schemes, microtransaction schemes, loot box schemes, season pass schemes? Why were we seeing all of these things thrust upon our video games? And the video game industry turned around and they said, wow, these are very expensive games to make. The cost of gaming is just going up and up and up. And we have to, because the price of games has remained primarily the same for a lot of years now. So we have to have microtransactions, we have to have season passes, monetizations, DLCs, etc. Otherwise, we're going to go under. And so the gamer said, okay, prove it. If what you're saying is true, then we can be sympathetic to you. All you have to do is prove it. Show that the cost of games at a base level is too low. Show that you need these additional monetization schemes to keep going, and we'll be happy to say, okay, well, why don't you, maybe raise the price of a game from $60 to $80, and then you can get rid of these monetization schemes. Why don't you show us the bottom line, how much it costs to make and run and uphold and maintain, and then we can empathize with you, gaming industry. Just one problem. The gaming industry didn't like that question. And nobody in the gaming industry has actually come out and shown the cost at all. Oh, can't do that. Can't do that. No. And of course, this was proven to be incorrect with the recent Battlefront 2 debacle in November 2017, about a year or so ago, when the loot boxes there, the game was designed around them, and it was pay to win. And so when they got called out, EA, that name's come up again, when they were called out about it, and they removed the loot boxes from the game, they said to the shareholder, don't worry, this isn't going to affect the game. But you said you needed these things in. And so the gamer becomes quite savvy. But the industry doesn't like it when you ask legitimate questions. It doesn't like it when you probe into why things are happening and why they are seemingly being taken advantage of as a gamer. And so for this greed to continue, the gaming industry needed to do something else. They needed to dehumanize the gamer. If you are going to try and consistently and without conscience take advantage of a group of people, then the worst thing for them to be is people. You have to dehumanize them. You have to turn them into something else. You have to turn players into payers. You have to turn a gamer into a whale. You needed to start using terminology and language that complete and utterly detach them from their humanity. And also, you needed to try and turn the frustration of the gamer back on itself. You needed to try and silence the questions which were coming your way. You needed to silence the people who were complaining about the distinct lack of quality in the game coming at the cost of the microtransaction and the monetization of the game. It was all getting very uncomfortable indeed for the gaming industry, and they simply couldn't have that. And so the poor gaming industry, they sent out an SOS. Hark! Hark! We are being besieged by the gamer. Who will step in and help us? Who will protect the poor gaming industry from these attacks that we're getting? And there was a voice far off in the distance. We'll help you. What was that? We'll help you. Who said that? Who are you? The gaming industry cried out. It is us. Shill Media. We will be your white knights. We will be your protectors. And we will be your shield. We will take it upon ourselves to dehumanize and silence the gamer. And suddenly the gaming industry had a barrier. It had a shield. It could impart its terminology onto Shill Media, and then Shill Media, who of course weren't connected to the games companies. And so the games companies could step back and say, well, These aren't our words. These are from these other news sources. They could then directly attack the gamer itself. They needed dehumanizing words. They needed terminologies like entitled and toxic. They needed to shout down the gamer who was spending a lot of money on products constantly. They needed to dehumanize them. They needed to invalidate them. Shield Media was here to help the gaming industry. And the gaming industry knew that they could manipulate Shield Media ridiculously easily. Why? Because Shield Media weren't acting out of any sense of responsibility for the industry itself. They weren't acting out of any sort of altruistic tendencies. No. Shield Media knew which side of the bread was buttered. You see, they didn't get anything from the gamer themselves. They got all their presents and beautiful gifts and trinkets from the industry. If they wanted an interview, it was the industry that provided it for them so they could create their articles. If they wanted a little bit of insider information, they could tap up their contacts because they knew they could call in some favours at a later date. If they wanted an advanced copy of the game so they could have a review ready for launch, they were there for them. And the gaming industry would every so often say, hey, fancy coming to a party? Fancy coming to this event? Hey, we're actually having a great event for our latest game. We'd love you to come along. Shield Media knew which side of the bread was buttered for them. And so the gaming industry could manipulate them like little puppets to do and say what they wished. And so because the gaming industry was consumed with this greed, if they wanted to target a new demographic, if they wanted to try and tap a new audience to milk for funds, well, they understood that Shield Media was predominantly far left and therefore could exploit those sensibilities and create more demonizing and dehumanizing words for the gamer. But EA, who I'm pretty sure I've mentioned once or twice in this video already, made a fatal mistake. You see, they came around the front of the protective barrier that the Shield Media had created between the gaming industry and the gamer. And they wanted to address the gamer directly in response to legitimate concerns that they had as regards to the bionic woman who could eat shotgun shells rather easily and be fine moments later, who was displayed very prominently in their Battlefield 5 cinematic trailer, because they thought that EA would attempt to rewrite history in the name of diversity, something, of course, which would appeal greatly to the far left Shield Media. And so Patrick Soderlund said of a conversation he had with his 13-year-old daughter, "Dad, why is this happening? I can be a girl in Fortnite. Why are people so upset about this?" And I'm like, okay, as a parent, how the hell am I going to respond to this? And I just said, you know what? You're right. This is not okay. Heartfelt words there, Patrick. Heartfelt words between you and your young daughter. If they weren't actually stolen from somewhere else, let's say Chris Metzen from Blizzard Entertainment, when he was responding to the community as regards to why they covered up Lady Sylvanas, put her in a few more clothes. We've heard our female employees, and my daughter tools me out about it. She saw a World of Warcraft cinematic of the dragon aspects, and my daughter was like, why are they all in swimsuits? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know anymore. That's eerily similar, Patrick. That's eerily similar indeed. Is there a template that you just fill in as regards to the heartstring tugging that you want to do? Or was it just bullshit that you were spouting? Because when the game released, the story which showed off a teenage girl and her mother destroying the heavy water production from the Nazis was a retcon of a true life event where many brave Norwegian men and British men lost their lives to do so. But hey, don't let real life get in the way of a fake story about pushing an agenda. Now, I understand why Patrick spoke to us like that, because they'd tried to dehumanize us to such a degree we were no longer customers. We were dollars and cents. We were whales and payers. We weren't people anymore, and so you can speak to them exactly how you want to, because the humanity in your eyes has been removed. And so when he issued his ultimatum of, if you don't want women in your battlefield, then don't buy it, not only did the backlash cause Patrick at the time to lose his job, leave the company, but it translated fiscally months later when the game released, and it did a poor, pathetic percentage against what Battlefield 1 had done, and it's currently on sale already for a substantial amount of money off a week after launch. But after all, according to EA themselves, I am uneducated. Which is really bizarre considering that they had a launch party for Battlefield 5 where on the screen they displayed multiple extreme tweets that they had about Battlefield 5. I mean, no tweets that had any legitimate concerns whatsoever, just the 0.00001% of extreme tweets that they would get, with the hashtag everybody's Battlefield. Well, that's actually historically inaccurate in itself, but what do I know? Again, I am just uneducated. But this sort of mockery is the type of mockery somebody does when they have reduced their audience to dollars and cents, to whales and payers, and have removed the humanity from them. This is where you go. You have a celebratory party for losing 50% in sales against your previous outing. I'm sure there's a lot of irony involved in that. And then there was Bethesda with Fallout 76, who 100% knowingly released a product into the marketplace at full retail price, knowing that at best it was in a state of early access, and at worst, fundamentally broken and would require at least 1 to 2 years to fix. So why did they do it? Well, there is just such a disconnect now between the gamer and the game developer. Why not? They have lost complete touch because they don't know who the gamer is, because they dehumanize them. They reduce them to words and phrases and insults and monetization. They have no idea who the gamer is anymore. We're listening to feedback. Are you listening to feedback? You couldn't give a rat's ass about feedback. You are just interested in cashing in. And what happens when the gamer leaves? Who's going to buy your products then? Shill Media? Shill Media is only interested in the freebies that it can get off you. It's a symbiotic relationship of shit. They just want to get what they can off you, and you want to get what you can off them. There is no loyalty there. They just want what they can grab. What about the influencers? They don't give two shits. They've moved on to the next payday. They're now talking to the next gaming company that is prepared to fly them out to an event, is prepared to kiss your ass while they're there and say, yeah, this game's really good. This game's really good, bro. This is going to be great. It's going to be a great hit. Thanks, Bethesda. You take care now. I'll take my freebie bag and I'll take my shit and I'm off. No, they're now talking to another company who's going, hey, how much will it cost to get you to come out to such and such and do such and such and such and such? Your goodwill that you have built up means shit nowadays. Why? Because you have eroded it away. And I say you as the gaming industry. That it doesn't matter that beloved companies like Bethesda, who just a few weeks ago, many of us, many of us, would be singing the praises of about their games, now are looking at them like, well, they're just another EA, they're just another Activision, they're just the same crap in the same industry. The disconnection has happened, and it's your fault. It's the gaming industry's fault in their pursuit of greed. All the gamer wants to do is play a game. That's it. That is the relationship that there used to be for many, many years. It's a tried and tested relationship. You make the game, we buy the game, we play the game. But we can't have that anymore. When somebody comes back home from school, from college, from work, and they've had this all day in their ear all day, and they just want to kick back, they just want to turn on a console or pick up a keyboard mouse and become the world's greatest footballer, or an awesome Tomb Raider, or an Orc Warrior, or an excellent space explorer, and they just want to forget about shit for a while. And they just want to enjoy themselves. They're having all of this sucked out of them by the gaming industry. By putting out pieces of shit like Fallout 76 and saying, full price, enjoy. By over microtransactioning everything. You can't turn in a game now without there being a microtransaction or a loot box or some other egregious monetization shit. And all we want to do is just have fun. And when we start complaining to you, why do we have all of these? La la la, we're listening to you, la 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 la, we're listening. And we're just not getting anywhere. And instead of the media supporting the gamer, the person that keeps the fucking industry going, we have to listen to, oh, look at that misogynist, look at that man baby, oh, look at that entitled gamer, oh, look at that toxic masculinity. And you wonder why the industry is in a state that it is. We've had enough. If you're not prepared to listen, if you're not prepared to produce a quality product and monetize it in a fair way, right on the screen, all video, right in your face, then we're just getting sick. Just getting sick and tired of COD Black Ops 4 coming out. And then 2 weeks later, then the microtransactions come in. Oh yeah, let's not put them in at the start. And so when the reviews come out, you can't put that it's got microtransactions. But when the reviews are out, whack them in, boys, says Activision. Scum. How Battlefield 5 opened up the big mouths. If you don't want it, don't buy it. Didn't buy it. People showed you exactly what they wanted. When Bethesda said we're bringing out a new multiplayer Fallout open world game, and we're going to release a beta that you're going to be able to break it so we can see what we can fix before it comes out. When does the beta release? A week before launch. That's not a beta. That's a demo. And you demoed an early access broken piece of crap. And instead of having the balls to do the right thing, instead of having the nonce to say, hey folks, we are really sorry. We're really sorry. We are going to fix the crap out of this. We realized this was not the state that it should have come out in. No. No. You put out tweets saying, millions of people have got the game and you're having fun and you're sharing your time with us. This is awesome. And you're sending nylon pieces of crap to people who sent $200 to you for collector's editions because you have no respect for them. Because you've disconnected from them, because you dehumanize them, because they're just dollars and cents to you. When you look at the most successful games of 2018, two really stand out. Monster Hunter World and God of War. Neither of which have microtransactions in them. Monster Hunter World is a multiplayer game by Capcom, and Capcom have heralded it as a massive success. God of War is a single-player game that tells a beautiful story about a father and his son. No microtransactions in sight, massive sales. Both of them heralded as huge successes. The AAA gaming industry has failed to deliver any proof whatsoever that microtransactions are necessary in video games. None. They've been challenged on it, they've refused to produce any information, and according to their own words with EA, it doesn't affect at all with Battlefront 2. So these are systems which are born off nothing but milking and greed. They can't even do it correctly and ethically like The Witcher 3 did it. Produced a wonderful, wonderful base product at a good price, and then offered two amazing story-based DLCs, which again could involve a substantial amount of time if you wanted to do everything at a very, very reasonable price. That is monetization done well. But the gaming industry, particularly the AAA gaming industry, they can't have that. They have to have it all. And in having to have it all, they have disconnected from the gamer completely. And if this causes the AAA gaming industry to collapse in on itself, I welcome it with open arms. If I see the fall of EA, Activision Blizzard, Ubisoft, I will be more than happy. My heart breaks at what is going on with Bethesda. Legitimately. I take no relish with what's going on with Fallout 76 at all, because they have done so much wonderful stuff in gaming with the Elder Scrolls series and the Fallout series. I am pleading for Bethesda to buck the fuck up and get back into gear. But if the AAA gaming industry falls to the wayside, you still have wonderful companies like CD Projekt Red, like Sony Santa Monica, like Capcom, who realised what Monster Hunter World could be and decided to put it out as a non-microtransaction based game. There will be the mid-tier gaming that will come to flourish. And we could see some incredible titles because of this. If we get rid of this egregious, greedy, filthy gaming industry that brands itself as AAA, and to be quite honest with you, is currently row Z. And the shill media, they can go away with it. Because they don't even play games by the looks of it, half of them. They don't even like the industry by the looks of it, the way that they speak to the gamers, the way that they understand exactly what's going on. But they decide to go and put themselves with the industry itself because they're the ones who are giving them their little trinkets and toys. They're bitter because they're failed journalists and they're not in the work that they want to be at. That's not our fault. Get good, as we say in the gaming industry. Greed is one thing, but when you dehumanize your audience, that is another thing entirely. Because when you dehumanize them, you can't connect with them. Because you're not viewing them on the same level as yourself, which is exactly the relationship which should be here. We should be on parity with each other. You are providing us with a product, and we are purchasing a product and playing it. We are not beneath you. We are not above you. We should be working together in unison. But you can't help yourself. Your insatiable appetite for more money and more money is going to come crashing down on you. The gamer who for so long has actually felt complete and utterly stranded is realizing that the voice that they have inside of them is being mirrored all around the world. And that voice is, we are sick and tired of the way that we're being spoken to. We're sick and tired of trying to be milked. We're sick and tired of not being treated like human beings. And we've had enough. And so if the AAA gaming industry, if you're Activision Blizzard, who make products for China and children, want to come out at BlizzCon and try and flog something which isn't even meant for their audience and wonder why it goes down like a lead balloon. If Bethesda want to put out another Fallout 76 and fleece their audience, if EA dare challenge the gamer, if you don't want to buy this, don't buy it, feel free to have a go. Because I'm pretty confident that right now, the gamer is ready to turn around and say, fuck you. Fuck you. So I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do get a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links there in the description box down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care. Bye for now.